was a setting that you saw each day, but after a while it became commonplace to you.
There were 3,000 workers when I arrived. Understaffed 3,000 workers. We lost 1,000 workers. There was only 2,000 workers left for 6,000 broken people.
When the budgets were slashed, they cut the staffing of the direct care workers who actually helped feed the children. They didn't even have appropriate wheelchairs in those days. They held the children and fed them in their arms. But the arms were no longer there.
We wanted to improve the place and try to make it a livable, habitable place.
And the parents were powerless in the face of the way in which the system was set up.
So we started out by organizing the parents. They got it immediately that this is not a good place, and we had no option other than to raise hell about it. They demanded that Dr. Hammond, the director of the institution, take a public stand against all of these conditions. And he said, no, I've been in this business a long time. I'm not going to do that. It won't do any good. We just have to work within the system. Things will get better ultimately. And they evicted him from the meeting. Said, you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. Our kids are here. We see what's going on. Get out of here. The following day, he sent around a memorandum to the employees saying, I know that some of you have been attending these parent meetings, and you're not allowed to do that anymore. The next Sunday, we did. We went to the parents' meeting, and a few days later, they fire us.
They had forgotten to take his key back. So he at that time had a relationship with Geraldo.
I just made this decision on my own. I said, I doubt that anybody can trespass on state property, but I don't care. That I'm going to try. So I called Geraldo and I laid it out.
So I get a call from Dr. Wilkins. He said, you won't believe it, but the conditions in Willowbrook are worse than the hospital. These are the worst conditions you've ever seen in your life. There are children that are being abused here. And I said, my God, how could that be possible? It's a state school, a progressive state in New York State, so it can't be as bad as you say it is. I thought it was a school like a college or, vocational school. I didn't know anything about the disabled. I didn't know anything about the population that we later discovered in the institution.
Nobody had ever really gone in and filmed for national television the actual conditions of a hellhole like this, and people didn't believe it.
I convinced the news desk at Eyewitness News to give me a crew. We went out to Staten Island, and that's where it all started.
The doctor invited me to see the conditions he was talking about, so unannounced and unexpected by the school administration, we toured building number 6.
I was totally unprepared for what I was to see. They told me it would be bad. It was horrible. The most horrifying thing I had ever seen in my life. And I think it was the most horrifying thing anyone outside of a concentration camp had seen.
There was one attendant for perhaps 50 severely and profoundly retarded children. Lying on the floor naked and smeared with their own feces, they were making a pitiful sound, the kind of mournful wail that it's impossible for me to forget. This is what it looked like, this is what it sounded like, but how can I tell you about the way it smelled? It smelled of filth, it smelled of disease, and it smelled of death.
The sound, the smell, the sights of it is something that is branded on my soul. I swear to you that I can conjure up exactly how I felt at that moment. That sound, the mournful wail that the kids were making, is the soundtrack of my nightmares.
Geraldo got it. I mean, I could see on his face that he had no idea that it was going to be like that. The motivating ideology was that the people were subhuman and didn't feel pain and didn't experience agony, and that almost anything you did to them would be all right.
The ward staffing was minimal. There was never more than one nurse in a whole building of 200 people, and they weren't doing nursing. They were just managing the workers. And they couldn't tolerate the overload of work. faced with.
What we found and documented here is a disgrace to all of us. This place isn't a school. It's a dark corner where we throw children who aren't pretty to look at. It's the big town's leper colony. How long have you been at Willowbrook?
18 years.
How long were you given physical therapy in school?
5 years.
Are you still going to school?
No.
Why?
I'm over age.
You're too old?
Yes.
Would you like to go back to school?
Yes, I do.
What would you want to learn if you went back to school?
To learn up my reading more.
Learn how to read.
Yeah.
He was part of our movement and eager to be so.
I got through poorly. I had that when I was a kid.
He was a working boy. You know, they would make the people that were not intellectually disabled, but were in Willowbrook anyway, work.
I met Bernard, and I don't remember in my whole life ever having a conversation with a disabled person. I had no experience whatsoever. I didn't know what to expect. And he spoke in a halting but eloquent way, and he said, when I asked him what the conditions are like there,
How is it living on the ward that you live?
It's good.
it's a disgrace, which became the title, The Last Great Disgrace of our documentary.